Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pleiadians podcast. We are so excited to be here with all of you today as we are talking about intuitive leadership. We're going to be diving into what exactly is intuition, some science behind intuition. You'll be pleasantly surprised, possibly, to know that a lot of really successful people throughout time, throughout history, a lot of innovators, inventors, genius in the musical industry, they all understand the power of intuition. And it's something that we feel like is a really important topic to really create an empowerment for you in your own life and the leadership that you came here to embody in whatever aspect that looks like. And we're going to just bring in the different aspects of intuition, how to start cultivating that on your own. We're going to bring in DiYeena, like always, to share the Pleiadian perspective and the perspective through the living law. So enjoy. And, we also want to just open anytime we do a podcast of really inviting you just into this sacred space. We always have these, what we would call earth drinks. I have some sacred cacao. Ava, what do you got over there?
I've got some peppermint tea over here. I had a nice little cacao beverage earlier, and then I realized as we were talking and getting ready for this episode, I was like, oh my goodness, I just drank all of DiYeena's cacao. I got to go make her another drink. So I have peppermint for her because I just felt like that was the right call. And also good for me too.
Yeah, if you're new here, DiYeena, you will meet her about halfway through the episode. She loves to have an earth drink. And the purpose of that, of having some sort of tea or beverage, is just to really bring in some synergy to our hearts. The heart space is a big part of the intuition. And so it's just connecting us all together in this space. So we're going to dive right in to really build the foundation of what exactly is intuition and what are the different aspects of intuition. It's really this inner knowing and tapping into that inner knowing to build trust with yourself, to build trust with the universe, how you're being led and guided. And it's beyond what the analytical mind can kind of process or comprehend. It's a very quick, almost instantaneous inner knowing. And this can come through in a number of different ways. There's heart intuition. And so the heart intuition is, if you've ever heard the term being heart-led, right? Or listen to your heart, tune into your heart. What is your heart telling you? And it's actually, there's some fascinating science behind heart intuition, where the heart actually has an electromagnetic field that is much wider than the spectrum of the brain. It's actually 60 times greater, which creates an energetic and electromagnetic field that is 5,000 times stronger than the mind. And so what does that mean? So if you think of the electromagnetic field that pulsates from each heartbeat, it's actually almost putting out this, I like to think of it as like this spidey sense kind of thing, right? Where you're actually putting out the ability to tune into the field around you. And with an electromagnetic field that's 5,000 times stronger, think of your ability, when everything is energy, that you're able to just tune into the field and process that information. The heart's going to be able to process that information way quicker than the mind ever could. And not only quicker, but it's actually going to be able to expand out to receive more of that information out of the field, because the field is just expanded to a larger range. And so when we think of tuning into the heart, getting out of the mind, tuning into the heart, and I think I've heard Ava say this on another episode, that one of the longest journeys in the human experience is from the mind to the heart. And I think that there's been so much emphasis on the analytical mind that we tend to oversee what the heart is really telling us, or what the heart is really wanting to share, or where it's wanting to lead and guide us. And so heart intuition is really powerful. And through this, we want to always create an invitation to get curious about where is your heart leading you? What has your heart been telling you? Maybe there's been something intuitively that the heart's been a message it's trying to have been getting across. And maybe the analytical mind is wanting to go in a different direction. And so this is all an invitation to maybe tuning into a different perspective of what is really here for you now. The next one would be gut intuition. And gut intuition is like that inner knowing, right? They say that the gut is our second brain. And there's there's a direct connection to the vagus nerve in the brain from the gut. And that's how there's just this direct, instantaneous connection. And so when you just have that, you hear the saying of like that gut intuition, like I can just feel it. Like it's almost sometimes that I feel a little queasy in my stomach, like something just feels a little off, right? And when we listen to the gut intuition, right, intuition is usually never wrong. It doesn't really lead us astray. It's usually the mind wants to come in and create some sort of analytical response or stories around it that then can create some confusion within that. But the gut is this instantaneous, this inner knowing. And so inviting you into what is the gut also telling you? And what you'll notice is that the gut, the heart, and the next one, the higher mind, right? The divine intuition, they all weave together beautifully. They'll all give you, if not the same, very similar information coming through. So when these three aspects are leading you in a direction, but then the mind comes in and wants to create some confusion or clutter and lead you in another direction, it's an invitation to get still and pause and get quiet and really tune into, okay, where is the higher guidance really guiding me at this time? Because the higher mind, the divine intuition, is tapping into just what it sounds like. A higher dimensional field, we can think of it as, connecting with your higher self, God, source, universe, whatever, whatever you believe in. It's, to me, it's all the same. And so it's tuning into what aspect of creation are you tapping into, and what are the higher messages that are available for you now. And to know what is coming from maybe the ego self or coming from higher mind, a good way to make that distinction is sometimes, right, the analytical mind, the ego self, when it's making a decision that isn't in alignment with the higher mind will feel expansive. It'll feel light. It'll feel, and sometimes it's a little uncomfortable because if it's calling you into something higher, that's outside of your comfort zone, right? And so there's ways to kind of find the distinction in this. So it's not always just it's comforting and free, right? But it'll feel lighter. It'll feel more expansive. And then the mind wants to come in. That's when it can create some of the fear, some of those hardwired patterns, right? Maybe a little bit of anxiety. And so it's tuning into the subtleties. And with intuition, if you haven't built up that intuitive muscle, in the beginning, they are going to be subtleties. It's going to be very subtle until you cultivate that practice within. And so that's a little bit about the different aspects of intuition, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper. But I just want to tune into Ava if you have anything that you want to share on this as well.
Yeah. What was coming through for me as you were sharing all of that was just really differentiating and really understanding the complexity of the human experience. And as we're really looking at being what is intuition and how do we tap into it and how do we discern all these pieces, really understanding that you're actually attuning to a greater capacity of reality, a greater bandwidth of what is already here, right? And so it's they say that what we see here in the physical plane is only 1% or even 0.01 to the 13th percent or something like that.
13 decimal point.
13 decimal points of zeros before you get to any kind of one. So pretty much very close to nothing, right? of matter, right? And then everything else, the 99+% is in this unseen realm. And this is really the 99% is really the realm we're talking about here in the sense of intuition, because it is this intangible but yet very physical, like the messages are a very physical experience at times. And then it can be a gut or a heart, and it can have a physicality in the sense of movement in the form, right? And just having that kind of bandwidth of awareness of that, or really attuning to more of who you are, more of who others are, and more of the frequencies that are simply here. And so when you're tuning in and using your intuition, you're simply expanding your awareness to include more of that 99% that we don't typically tap into when we're in our everyday reality, when we're just going to our work, going to our job, dealing with the family, cooking dinner, whatever we're doing, driving around. All these things are in that less than 1%. Right. And so how often are we even taking time out of our day to even acknowledge that there is a 99% of reality that we are not typically even in relation with? And so the first step is to actually begin to build a relationship with that 99%. So that would be the first thing. And, as you're sharing that around building that muscle, if you're not used to building your intuitive muscle and how that can really take time to develop, Shylo and I really do have taken the time to develop those muscles and have had like the real life kind of tests and moments to really to build that. Like my husband and I got a message years ago to sell all of our stuff, get rid of the house, and buy an RV and a truck and travel around the country. And we did that with our young little children before they were school age, and traveled all around the country for 2 years. And that was did not make any logical sense at all. But the intuitive messages that were coming through so strongly for both of us, we couldn't ignore it, and so it wasn't comfortable. We were having a very comfortable life where we were, and to uproot everything, sell everything, and shove our entire life into an RV and then hit the road without a plan, which isn't that off-brand for our family. For those of you who know us, and you'll get to know us more, like we're adventurers, and we will take life in that way and go for it. And it's an uncomfortable experience for anyone, right? And so just recognizing too that these moments of intuition, as Shylo was saying, are going to be often the moments that are not necessarily the most comfortable, and that's by design, right? It's like we're meant to grow and expand from what we are into what we can be, and that process of evolution is always there for us. And so intuition and following that intuition is the sweet invitation into your greatness, invitation into the more of who you are. And so getting to build that intuitive muscle is really developing a relationship with yourself, I like to say, like really being in a love affair with yourself, because it really is. It's really trusting yourself. It's really building that relationship with yourself, and with your relationship with the divine, and with your relationship with your higher self, and all of these aspects of reality that are right here for us. And I'm sure, Shylo, you've got some good stories too about just how intuition has really played a vital role in your own life. I mean, we live this way so much that it really is second nature, right? And it's what were you sharing before, Shylo? And it's like, I trust my intuition way more than my brain.
100%. When I think back on my life, and it's interesting, Ava, you just sharing that, right? Very similar message, which I feel like was really around the same time as you and Yeshua, of selling everything and packing everything into my truck. I left my country, quit my job in the middle of when everything was shut down, which didn't make any sense at all. It's like my family was like, what are you doing? Like this, are you sure this doesn't feel safe? And and just everything was pulling me into another direction. And at that time, I hadn't really built a strong enough connection with my intuition at that time to really be in the full trust that I am in now. Right. And so even at that time, I was like, well, my dad's making some good points here. Like, the world shut down. I'm quitting my job. This doesn't make any logical sense am I, setting myself off on a disastrous kind of path? And what I've understood to be true through a lot of trial and error, honestly, or I don't even want to say error because I believe that everything is really happening for us, but through lived life experience, I will say it in that sort of in that sense. But I absolutely trust my intuition way more than my brain, because when I look back and I reflect on my life, every time I've trusted an intuitive, guided message, pull, taking the leap, it's always worked out in my highest and best. And I can see that looking back now. And I can also look back and reflect on when I was in my mind, when I was in these unconscious loops, when I was in anxiety, when I was in fear, and I was making decisions through the lens of fear rather, and trying to use my logical mind and being in these, you know, conscious loops. If you know anything about astrology, I have a stellium in Gemini. And so my mind used to just be so busy. And through learning how to cultivate my intuition and trusting that, what I know now is that when my intuition is pulling me somewhere, even if it doesn't make sense, logical sense, I trust that more than when my mind comes in and tries to create a story, or, well, what if this doesn't work out? Or what if, well, all of these what ifs. And I know enough now through these lived experiences that that only, can create some disharmony in life. As it creates confusion, it creates disconnect. And I think that's the biggest place of the disconnect. And I think that one of the pieces with intuition of why it's so powerful, at least through my own lens, is just what I've spoken, right? In the fear. And the mind is a powerful tool. It has a place, absolutely. And when we're really tuning in and making intuitive decisions, it, instead of disconnects us, it actually brings us into the deepest connection to self, right? The heart, the gut, the mind, the body, right? The higher mind, the divine mind, that's tapping us into the collective consciousness. It's tapping us into something greater than self. And it's also a reminder that, hey, I'm ready to take the leap because I can feel the amount of support that I have in the unseen realms. And then that gets to reflect, right? As within, so without, that gets to reflect in the reality. And what you'll notice is when you start living through the intuitive lens and you start trusting not only yourself, but how you're being led and guided, what you'll notice is that it's not only, right, the unseen, this 99.999% that Ava was talking about, that little smidge of matter that we see with the physical eyes, it'll start reflecting that. And all of a sudden, these earth angels start coming into your life. And all of a sudden, like take Ava and I's story for example, and we've shared this before, so I won't dive into this, but that story of us both kind of packing everything up, we met each other in that. We met when you were in the RV and I was, had everything I owned in my truck, and we met
Right.
in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert in Joshua Tree. And so it's like you magnetize in your soul tribe, those that are here to work with you and in alignment with you, and we're looking at this through the lens of leadership. And what I know in leadership and what I've stepped into in leadership is that, this isn't the paradigm where one person is coming to lead the way into this new earth paradigm. We're coming here to do it together. And so we're rising together. And so we need many of you out there that know that, hey, I know that I'm here to be a light leader in this awakening. The awakening is calling you forward to step into that leadership, and it's trusting, it's tapping into the intuition, it's calling in your soul tribe so that we can all light the way together. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. And it's just such a good point that you're making, because again, going back to the part where which trips up most people. This part really is the biggest piece. Well, how do I know if it's my mind, or if it's really my intuition? And like that discernment, especially in the beginning, can feel even overwhelming at times. And what you're saying here is, when you really start to get good at honoring, because here's the thing, your intuition is right, whether you choose to honor it or not. Excuse me. Your intuition is right, whether you honor it or not. And we all have moments of this, right? We all have these moments where we had that gut feeling, we had that inner knowing, and we didn't listen to it. And then it turned out a certain way, and then we had the thing happen, and then we're like, I knew that. And I didn't honor it. I didn't listen. Right. And so, not to kick ourselves when we're down, but like that's the reflection, right? Of like, okay, you can trust me. This is another piece where it's like, okay, I can trust my intuition when it does this, when I feel this way, I can trust it because this is what happens. It's like you can kind of get that reinforcement. Sometimes you do have to have it go that way a few times before you really get like, okay, this isn't really wrong when this comes up, when I feel it in this way, and we all feel it in different ways. Like Shylo was saying, sometimes we really have the strong primal gut knowing, and others are really heart-centered, and others are really connected to that divine mind, and just really knowing, if you do have one that's stronger than the other, like to know when you can trust that, because it's really there for you. It's really there for you. And so as you get good at that, then you're really opening the doors for your life to expand in ways beyond what your logical mind can comprehend. So you're allowing the gifts of the universe to bless you in ways that you could not even perceive, because you're all of a sudden removing that cap. You're taking the lid off of that expansion. So the mind is literally limited by dimensionality. The heart is not. The heart expands through infinite multidimensionality. And so when you're tuning in and operating through the lens of the heart, all of a sudden, the full spectrum of reality, the full spectrum of opportunity and possibility are now all of a sudden at your fingertips, or at your heart space, literally there for you to interact with, engage with, to create, to be in relationship with. Whereas, you are limited when you're simply using the logical, rational mind. And this goes into a lot of even studies that have been shown in like the ways that success is really directly tied into leadership, and it's I think it was Forbes, wasn't it Forbes that was saying that intuitive leaders are the most successful. And, intuition is so powerful that I really found this fascinating. Our brain analyzes patterns and probabilities before the conscious mind has time to catch up. Did you hear that? So your brain is analyzing and like what is actually happening. You could argue that it's, the logical brain, the heart brain. There are parts of your being, and this goes into your multidimensionality, your infinite multidimensionality, that are attuned to the subtleties of what is at play in the field. And those parts, that are going beyond the dimensionality of the logical mind of the brain, are tuning into those before it's coming into the dimensionality of the brain. So your parts of you are very aware of what is happening, and you do know, those parts do know immediately what to do, what is right, what they have the clarity. So you have the clarity. That is the piece, is you actually know. You actually know every single time. And that's the part that gets to get fine-tuned if you're kind of new to really trusting your intuition, is getting that clarity and trusting yourself that you can actually trust the messages that are coming through. And then the biggest part is having the courage to take action, having the courage to actually act on these things as they're coming through. Because that's the part that that we can actually create all this that Shylo was talking about, all this stuff in the mind that we're like, we could create we can really talk ourselves out of the right thing. And we do it a lot. And we do it usually because there's a fear or a consequence to actually showing up and following through with what our intuition is telling us. And we're actually afraid of the consequence. We're afraid of the action. We're afraid of like, what will happen if I actually do this thing that my intuition is telling me to do or not do, And so that's the part that can get us a little bit stuck, and it's not even stuck. It's just simply the limitation that fear can create. And so when we begin to trust and act on a regular basis without needing it all to make sense, without needing to really understand how it's all going to play out, without overthinking it, just freaking act, just take the actions as you're feeling that call, that body, divine mind, heart, gut is all kind of online and firing to actually take action on those things. And it's really showing, statistic after statistic, as we were looking through this, all the things are showing that that intuitive leaders are more productive, especially when it comes to, I found this interesting, introverted leaders really have, there's a very big connection there between being introverted and having that intuitive leadership skill turned on, that it can really, there's just all these correlations that are really made when you start to do the research around how powerful being able to use your intuitive mind can be in your success in business, like literally success, like translating into dollars, translating into more happy clients, more happy employees, in just a better work environment overall.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I love how you brought in the courageous piece, because that was something that I was going to share on as well. And that's such an important part of it, right? Because you can receive the message and then go, oh, I don't want to go there, right? But it's one of these aspects of when the saying is, when you see it, right, what we're able to see, especially through this higher paradigm of leadership, once you see it, you cannot unsee it, right? And once you know it, you cannot unknow it. And, you don't want to get to the end of your life going, there was this leap that I know that I was being called into, and this leap that I know that I was being called into, but there was a fear that kept you held back. And, we all have fears, and, I still to this day, right, I'll have something really big intuitively coming through. And even though I have so much trust in my heart, it's like, oh, are we sure we're taking that leap? Like, oh, that feels very uncomfy. And yet the more that we do that, the more that we not only expand our own life and bring more success into our own life, we can actually pour that into the entire collective, right? Because the new paradigm of leadership isn't, just a one way kind of looking at how, maybe one company or one person thrives. It's, how do I thrive? Is it a win for me? Is it a win for my team? And is it a win for the collective? Because we are here, right, raising the collective consciousness. That's what it really means to be a light leader in this new paradigm. And it takes courage. Another quote that's coming up right now is that, how much courage that it takes to keep your heart open when it wants to close the most, right? And there's so much going on in our collective reality that our heart is wanting to close, right? And there's a lot of reason for that fear of wanting to keep us comfortable and safe, right? And so the mind is doing its job, right? So we don't want to we don't want to look at the ego or the mind or these patterns as these negative things, because they are trying to keep you safe. And the higher intuition is understanding that when that safety net actually is no longer serving your highest good, it's no longer serving the highest good of what it is that you're here to create and build, and it's no longer serving the highest good as the collective as a whole. And so, it can take a little time to build that intuitive muscle, but the more that you take that leap and trust yourself, what you'll notice, right, is then there's more evidence of, okay, I'm being held and supported. And you start to understand energetically what that looks like, what that feels like. And, when we were tuning into this, there are so many brilliant people throughout time that have really truly understood the power of intuition. We were diving into the work of Nikola Tesla, of Albert Einstein. They all state that intuition was a massive part of right, their success, and their success was a collective success. Like, these are brilliant minds, inventors, innovators. We wouldn't be where we are today as a collective without the work that they so courageously did back in that time, trusting their intuition, tapping into what they call, right, is this higher mind that they were tapping into. We can look at musical geniuses. I was sharing with Ava before we hopped on this really powerful story through Michael Jackson, of how he was sharing. He was on tour and he was sharing with his tour manager that, it was really late at night and he wanted to get into the studio because he had a song that came through and downloaded. And, they were telling him, we're super busy. Like, you should probably get some rest. We have a big day tomorrow. And he goes, no, you don't. Or I think he said, God, he used the phrase, God sent me this message or this song, but he understood that it was coming from this higher mind. And the tour manager said, can't God wait a night? Can he take a night off? And he goes, no, you don't understand. Because if I'm not here, if I'm not in the studio to receive these ideas, then God might give them to Prince. And I just found that so powerful, because what that is stating is that he understood that there's this collective information, this higher mind information, that these intuitive hits are waiting for somebody to listen, right? So yes, we have the gut intuition, the heart intuition, and that's really more personalized. And when it comes to this higher mind intuition, right? Ideas, innovations, creative projects. Like, if you're in a place where you feel like you're maybe creatively blocked, like, I know that I'm meant to step into leadership and I can feel this business idea or whatever it may be, but you're like, there's something that there's just a disconnect, or I can't, or I'm not creative enough, or whatever the story may be. Ask for support. Take time, pause, tune in, and listen, because there is a whole, the whole magical treasure, energetic treasure chest that is waiting for somebody to listen, to tune in, which is exactly what Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein talked about as well, is that wasn't special information that was just given to them. They understood how to tap into it, how to receive it, how to listen, how to then embody the information, and then they took courageous action on it. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll say about that is, we were kind of sharing about that, and intuition is really this missing success code that not many people are really aware of. There was a study done by the Harvard Review that said like 68% of business owners do not actually operate through intuitive reasoning. They use logic and rationale. And Albert Einstein literally said he's quoted saying, all great achievements of science must start from intuitive knowledge. And that's exactly what you're saying here is that's his way of saying the tapping into the divine mind, right? It's this frequency that's available. And of course that would be the case, because again, going back to the 99% and the 1%, the 1% is what we already see, what we're already experiencing, what's already here on this physical reality. The 99% is available in the divine mind, is in this intuitive realm of possibility. And so, of course, in order to have any kind of discovery, what is a discovery? What is an invention? It's taking something that is in this field that we're talking about and bringing it into this dimension, creating it, bringing it into fruition. And that has to happen through being tapped into that intuitive mind, because that's literally the definition of an invention, is moving something from one field of consciousness into our physical reality.
Beautiful. And just as you were sharing that, something that came through was another explanation from a book. Maybe you read it. If you haven't, it's an incredible book. It's called Happy Pocket Full of Money. And it talks about how, right, and this is like creative ideas, inventions, these different aspects that if you have, right, so if you think of what we're speaking into, this higher mind, this collective ability to tap into this information, that which I see it as like how I just shared, right? This magical, like treasure chest of information that's just waiting for us to tap into. There is, if you think of like the hermetic principle of like everything starts in this higher mind kind of aspect, and it's one of, the universal laws, that everything that exists within there is collectively created through our collective, and not just our physical collective here, but it's also, right, all of these different dimensional beings in this universal kind of system that we're existing in. And you'll understand what we mean by that once we bring in DiYeena and the energetics and the beings of the living Ma. And what it speaks of in this book is that if you have an intuitive hit, an idea, right, just in the way that this podcast came through to us, right, wanting to share this information, or anything that you're wanting to create. I want this to be something that inspires you to go out and do the thing. Because if you have an idea, a creative project, an innovation, something that's coming through, it's because that there's a collective group of people, or maybe even just one person, that's actually praying for somebody to create that thing, right? And so there's a collective desire for this thing to be created that maybe doesn't actually exist here, whether it's on this plane or a higher plane of existence. So think through the divine mind as wanting it to be created, where we don't actually understand it here. It doesn't exist here, which is how innovation is created, right? And the higher mind, or God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, is like, okay, we're ready for the next stage of evolution, and it's ready for this. The collective is ready for this. Then it's waiting, or people out there are waiting for you to show up and create the thing, because there are some sort of desired prayers for the thing to actually be created, which again is coming back to the example of Michael Jackson, right? Which is like, maybe a silly example, but it's really powerful when you think of the truth behind that, of like, okay, there's information, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to bring it down. And now I'm going to take some aligned action with that. And so, trusting that, right? I know that I've had a story in the past of like, well, if I create the thing, or people, is it even going to be desired? The answer is yes, because you wouldn't even have the download to create the thing if there wasn't a desire for it.
And then even when you brought up the question, I could feel the frequency difference. And I want to just name this, because this is how you discern, for those of you that are really, really working on this piece of discerning. It's like you literally ask the question, well, how do I know? You immediately went into the frequency of the mind, even asking that question, if it's going to be, accepted, or people really want it, or that's the frequency of the mind, right? And so that is not the intuition. That is actually the rational, logical mind coming in with its fears and its worries and its concerns about, what if this or that, and then all of a sudden, if we have a lot of those and we pay attention to them, well, then all of a sudden we're not doing the thing anymore, because we've let the mind override all of the intuitive hits to take action on this thing. So it's an important piece to just notice, even when those thoughts come in, and where they're coming from. Are they, because again, the message is the message, the hit is the hit, right? And then we create the story around the message. We create the story around what we're receiving, based on how our relationship is to fear, and how our relationship is to being in service and giving our gifts, right? And so really having the clarity of who you are and what you're here for makes this whole process a lot easier, because you have that assuredness of like, okay, I'm really here to be a rising light leader, to really give my gifts, to bring these to the world, to do it in this particular way. And maybe those, then you all of a sudden get this download of like, oh, wow, I'm really getting this message that what if I did it in this way? and to really feel into that and let your body and your heart and the conscious, larger divine mind really guide as you're moving through these inquiries, and just when you notice the frequency of the mind coming in, that's in the lower dimensional realms, bringing in the logical pieces of how or what if, or the questions like this, that's not your intuition. If you're asking the how questions and the what if questions, those aren't intuitive questions. So just really begin to notice that, because that's a way to begin, again, to develop that discernment and to be able to really kind of build those muscles in a really good way. And this is a good time to really just even name that there are really 4 aspects of intuition as you're kind of working with developing this for your own self. And the first is really getting clear within your field. A lot of times, especially within our world, it's really an important piece to kind of have energetic hygiene. And what that means is really making sure that you're clear in your field, you're clear in your aura, that you're strong in your aura, that you don't have any holes, right? That you're minding what you're taking into your field, and that you're taking in, only that which is serving your highest good. And really making sure, even getting energetic tune-ups every now and again by humans that are equipped in that particular way, that have that particular gift, to really having a relationship. Shylo and I both do this constantly, not constantly, but seasonally, getting these energetic tune-ups. It doesn't matter how, like, where you are or what your role is. It's like, this is energetic hygiene is just as important as taking a shower, eating clean food, things like this, exercising. This is another level that's just super, super important. And it sets the stage of making sure that you are really clean and clear, so that the messages that do come through, you can really trust it, right? And so that second piece then is getting quiet enough to listen, getting quiet enough to actually hear the messages that are coming through. And that takes actually setting the stage, actually putting intentionality into quieting your mind, right? Because that part is when we can quiet that mind, it's so much easier, because you don't have that interference going on all the time saying, oh, what if this, or how are we going to do that? Or, that's just when you have that a little bit more kind of reeled in a little bit, you've kind of worked with the mind, and you have a meditation practice or whatever your practice might be to really work with the mind and to have it being used as a tool rather than kind of taking over your whole life. Then it's really a lot easier to really trust those intuitive messages, which is really the third piece, is trusting. And what are we trusting? Trusting yourself, trusting your relationship with your own higher self, trusting your relationship with source, direct connection to God, right? Like really trusting your relationship with what you are receiving, and trusting that you have that circuitry built up so strongly that it's not even a question of trust anymore. You just know when you know. And that's, that's kind of the level I feel like that Shylo and I at least have really gotten to is this part where we really, when these messages come through, we don't question them, right? It's like they might feel a little bit uncomfortable, or like, oh, really? Like, really? You're going to make me do that? Like, this is what's on the table? It's not always a comfortable thing. It's meant to stretch us, right? Like, we're meant to evolve. As I was saying at the beginning of the episode, these are things that are invitations to grow. So to see it in that way. And then the fourth is I feel where most people kind of get caught up the most, which is taking courageous action, courageous aligned action when necessary. And that can look like inaction, right? Like it can, like the action or the inaction, it can look like whatever is aligned based on the messages that you're receiving, whether to do something or act on something, or to not act on something, right? Or to whatever the thing may be. But just taking that courageous action based on what you're receiving is really the most important piece here. It is how we develop that strength and that resilience as leaders, right? It's like we have to be the ones that are willing to do the hard thing, to show up and do the uncomfortable thing, right? And so it's like, this is not comfortable for me to show up online and channel a Pleiadian. Like, do you know how much I had to go through when she first came through and was like, so you're going to start a YouTube channel. And I'm like, what? This is not in my personality at all, And so being willing to hear the messages, receive the messages, and also take aligned action, and to be courageous in the face of that is really part of what makes a leader that we can trust, and that's really what people are looking for when they're looking to you as a leader, is like, can I trust you? And that comes back to, do you trust yourself? And if you trust yourself, are you listening to the messages that you're receiving? Are you listening to the subtle cues that are all around us, right? Are you making decisions that are empathetic and connected to the greater whole, the greater good? Because that's another piece to all of this, is like, if you're making intuitive decisions, well, then all of a sudden you're attuned to a field that's bigger than just you. You're connecting into the conscious field of the whole. And so you are making moves and decisions that are really a win-win-win. They're for the good of yourself, for the other, and for the whole. And so this is just some of the pieces that begin to just really click into place. The more you trust your intuition, the more you trust yourself, the more you trust your ability to show up for yourself in that particular way. And that people notice, that people are tuned into the subtleties. And this is other people using their own intuition, especially when it comes to who they're going to be receiving advice from, or who they're going to follow, or who they're going to be inspired by, is really like, does this person trust themselves to lead themselves? Right? They're looking at these kind of things, right? It's like, that's what I look to when I'm looking at my own mentorship and leaders. It's like, are these people that are showing up for themselves? Are they walking their talk? Are they attuned to the subtleties in the field, right? And these are the things that create a sense of safety for other people. It's like, if you're not attuned to the subtleties in the field, like, that is not a safe container. Mm-hmm. Right. And so these things create a deep sense of safety for people. And so that's another piece to this, is like, you're showing up in leadership. A big part of showing up in leadership is creating a safe container for others to land in. And that safety is really having attunement to the field around you.
Mm-hmm. That's such a good point. When I think of who I really trust to lead me, it's somebody who not only trusts themselves, right, but is also, what you're speaking into, so tuned into the subtleties that I know that they're making decisions with the highest alignment through receiving information from the divine, right? They're really tuned in to their own heart and gut intuition, and they're so tuned and tapped into the higher mind, knowing that they're not going to lead me astray through their own egoic decisions. And nobody's perfect, right? And we're all human and we can make mistakes. But even in that, do they know how to take accountability and then course correct, right? And so it's not about being perfect by any means, but it's about continuously showing up for yourself and tuning in and tapping in to what is in the highest alignment for yourself and for those around that you are leading, in whatever aspect that looks like, whether it's just your own life, whether it's your family, whether it's, an entire business and community, whatever that looks like for you. What Ava is speaking into is such an important part of that safety. If I can really tune in and trust someone to lead me, knowing that they're tapping into, right, something beyond what I can even expand my bandwidth to tune in and tap into, I will, I'll trust them to lead me through the fire, because I know no matter what, that I'm being led with the highest and best. And also, right, even in that, always being in your own channel of discernment, right? And trusting yourself, even if you're allowing someone else to lead you, like, what is your discernment in that? Can you still be your own leader, even while taking guidance and leadership from someone else? Because again, we're all here to lead each other and to hold each other. And we're really here to rise together in this collective awakening. And so there's so much magic in tuning in and tapping into your intuition. And I think for me personally, one of the most important aspects of that is empowerment. It's knowing and trusting myself that I'm going to be making empowered choices for myself and my community and those around me. And the reason why I feel so passionate about sharing intuition, and one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this into the podcast, is it's really important for all of you to feel empowered and to be tapping into what is in the highest and best for you in the collective, because there's a lot of distortion in the collective field with everything that all of the systems that are, breaking down. And so there's a place in that to be so heart-centered. I know, at least for myself, of no matter what is happening around me, no matter what is crumbling around me, being tapped into your higher intuition and trusting that whatever this is still for our highest and best, because I can still tap in and see the higher vision. And as long as I'm taking one step in front of the other, like, we are being led and guided. And that can just bring in this unshakable inner knowing that is what's going to be the guiding light for all of us in the unfolding of what's happening with humanity at this time.
Absolutely. And just to reemphasize that, we're really the definition of leader is really, we are really in a paradigm shift with that. It's like, you think that back to the childhood games of following the leader, right? It's like, that's not where we're at in consciousness anymore, right? That is not what is going to bring us collectively into the newer frequency. This is a new era of collaboration and inspiration and cooperation and really communion, right? It's like really honoring one another for the gifts that everyone brings to the table, and rising collectively together, and really doing that in a way that is synergistic and is really working with all the frequencies within the space, and really honoring every frequency in that space. And everyone still has their role to play. It's like, you still might be holding the actual container, but you're not doing that alone, right? It's like every other frequency is playing a role in that holding, and so just, you're the one that's kind of maybe your particular gift is in the attunement, is in the subtlety of the field, right? And then there's others that are in that container that are bringing other gifts that are not your strengths, right? And so honoring the gifts that every single one is bringing into the field, and being able to dance and move fluidly with all of it, is really where we're stepping into in a bigger way, in the bigger collective, and is why we're even doing this in a co-container, co-facilitation container, is to really emphasize that, and bringing in even other guests to come in to, especially in the membership, bringing in the wisdom of others, to really receive, because we're in there learning just alongside everyone else, and it's really meant to be that way, right? And so just recognizing that as you're developing this kind of skill or this refinement as a rising light leader, recognizing that what does that mean, even in this new paradigm as we're rising together, and to really have that clarity that it doesn't look like the old way, right? And we get to co-create in this new way together.
Beautiful. I love that so much. And just as you were sharing that, of like, we're co-creating this container, and maybe this is an intro for DiYeena to come in, and we're not only just co-creating it with you and I in the community, like Ava said, we have an online membership where it's really community based, to expand light leaders to come together, to rise together. And we're also co-creating this with a higher dimensional plane of existence, beings that are here to really serve humanity at this time. And maybe Ava, you want to share a little bit about that, but it's DiYeena, and who is a part of the Living Ma. And so I was seeing this very beautiful visual of like this light that we're co-creating down here in the physicality, and how that's actually weaving into these higher realms. And then all of this information that's being channeled down is weaving back down here. And I could just see almost like this breathing, right? This like, this expansion and contraction through the breath of harmonics, through the voice, through the sound, through the way that we share this with our voice, and with DiYeena's voice being down here. And I could just see how that was weaving through and really pouring and serving into the collective. So that was just something that I wanted to share, because it was beautiful, beautiful vision that I just viewed.
I love that visual, and that really ties in so beautifully with how DiYeena usually describes this type of movement through consciousness. As she describes it as a circuitry, and it just was seeing that as you were saying that it was like the breath or a circuit that's being created as we kind of work with the exchange of energies in that way. It's so beautiful. So I am a trance channel for those who are maybe listening for the first time, and that means that I kind of take a back seat in my body, and I have a relationship with a Pleiadian being named DiYeena, who is from the 13th dimension, and she's connected to a frequency known as the living Ma, and that does include other beings as well that do channel through as well, that I also have a relationship and a contract and an agreement to do so. And so in that way, not just channeling anyone, I don't channel, people's lost loved ones, for example. It's a really specific contract, a really specific agreement to bring forth this particular frequency of information onto the planet during this transition, specifically of where we're going with consciousness on this planet. And they're here to really help and support this transition. And that includes all of you who are here on this call right now, coming into your next evolution as a rising light leader, because you're here to really be an anchor in this transition and in this new earth. So I just want to honor all of you who are here right now, listening in, because this means you. This means you in some way. You are here to really hold in that new frequency, and you're doing it by showing up for yourself in this moment, and by tuning into this podcast. You're actually receiving these dimensional frequencies of the 13th dimensional frequency of the Pleiadians and of the living Ma. And this is a frequency that is informing and recoding and helping to activate and remember these parts of ourselves that are really just waiting for this activation back into remembrance of the more dimensionality of who we truly are and what we're really here for. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go out and I'm going to put you in touch with the Pleiadians. Here we go. Greetings. This is DiYeena. You see, other Pleiadian family. You see, we are here, you say, to bring the love to all the humans, you see. And we would like to say to everyone who was so kind to bring their drinks today, you see, the sips of the earth. We will take a little sip, you see, bring your glasses up, you see, we will commune together. And to say that we are all in circuitry, you see, with the heart space, you see, bringing in the love, bringing in more of the love, you see, and also knowing where you are on the earth, you see, bare feet on the ground, you see, you drink the herbs growing around you, you see, you put them into the teas, you see, and then you are in deeper circuitry relation with the place of the earth that you are finding yourself residing, you see, brings more strength to who you are, your body, in your mind, in your consciousness, in your heart. You see, so creates greater resilience, you see. Also, we have a little gift here from Ava, so we say thank you. You see, we say we like it very much. We will take a sip and see where we are on the planet. Very good. Very a tingly one today, you see. Not like the other creamy ones we have some other days. It's very tingly. We'll say it like that. Let me say, well, hello, my dear Shylo. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for being here with us today, DiYeena.
Well, it is always a pleasure, my dear. It is always so very fun when we are getting together, you see, cracking the jokes, getting to know each other, you see, answering some questions for the humans, you see, calming the fears, you see, reminding of the love, you see, all these things very important, you see. So where are we going today?
Beautiful. So we have been deep diving into intuition and how that really plays a part in the new paradigm of the leadership roles that we're all stepping into here as humanity is continuing to awaken and evolve, and the different aspects of intuition. And one of our first questions here would be, what is a tangible way to cultivate and build a relationship with your intuition? So anything that you want to share with the viewers, with the community, maybe that we haven't shared thus far, to assist them in really learning to trust their own intuitive gifts.
Well, you're assuming we were eavesdropping as usual then to know what you are already talking about, my dears. We like it, you see. We have been listening in, you see, so we are aware. what we will say, you see, is that you've said very many things, you see, around the intuition. You see, it's very important, you see, for the trust piece, you see. And this is really a frequency that has broken off parts of your soul. For many of you, there's a fractal or a little bit of a crack, you see, within the wholeness of your structure. You see, so we are bringing wholeness into the fractals, you see. So what we mean by that is bringing wholeness to the soul. So sometimes you say, oh, we're going to go grab all the soul fragments, you see, from all the other places where we left them around, you see. Sometimes we do this intentionally. Sometimes we do this unintentionally, more unintentionally than intentionally. Sometimes we just say, well, this is a very important part of my soul that's very powerful. We're going to ask a very important being that we trust to just hold on to this part until we're ready for it, till we feel empowered enough to hold on to that piece. You see, sometimes that happens, you see. Ava did that with one of our guides, you see. You hold on to this piece, very important one. You do not lose it. You bring it back when we are ready for it. She claimed it back, you see. But these are important parts that we have to really call back into ourselves, you see, because these are the parts when they are not with us, create a lack of trust, you see, because it's like a fragmentation or a computer programming that is kind of scattered a little bit, does not have all the information, you see. So it's hard to trust when you do not have all the information, you see. But when you are creating, when you have all these soul fragments together, then you are fully informed, you see. And so it's very easy to trust. There is a part of you that just has the deeper knowing, you see. So if you're feeling this sense of whenever you have the intuitive messages coming through, that you find yourself coming into the frequency of the mind, questioning everything, and then getting all caught up in it and not knowing where to go, or you're feeling in the fear, well, then this is perhaps a little bit of a signal to yourself to maybe do a little bit of the soul clearing work to just call it back in, you see. And this does not have to be complicated. Everyone will go, well, now, DiYeena, you're giving us a whole nother laundry list of things to do. We have to now go get all our soul parts. Well, I don't even know where they are, you see. How do I know if I have any that are lost or anything like this? You see, this sounds like a bigger mission than just trying it out of the intuition and maybe just hoping for the best. You see, maybe we just do that, you see, rather than trying to go grab all the soul parts from all over the cosmos. That sounds like a very big job, you see. It does not have to be a big job. This is the point, you see. It does not have to be so complicated, you see. So it was very, very simple, actually, you see. It is simply done through the heart with the intentionality, you see. Isn't that fascinating? You can be doing it very easily. It is very important that, and we should just suggest that anyone that is listening, just take a moment to do, because why not, you see? Unless you are very clear that you just had your soul work done last Wednesday, and you are very clear that you have all the parts and you are not missing any, you just checked that, then you can go take a nap, you see. But the rest of you, let us all just take a moment here to really just call them all in, you see, call in all your parts, you see. And you can really just do from your heart, you just, with the intentionality, something, you use your own words. You do not have to use DiYeena's words, but there's something to the effect of that I call back all parts of myself that are not collected in the whole, you see, and to bring them back into the wholeness so that they are all in communion once again, you see. And you bring back all the pieces and you feel your light body, you feel the frequency of your light body in the state of wholeness, you see. You see yourself almost like a puzzle, and you can see the missing puzzle pieces. Envision all the puzzle pieces of light coming back into the light body, filling in all the little puzzle parts that were little gaps here and there, and then all of a sudden you envision a whole body with no puzzle pieces missing, you see. It can be as simple as that, you see, just a visual of bringing it back in, you see. If you do not have the visuals, you just pretend, you see. You don't have to get complicated. You just pretend that you are just seeing it in your mind's eye, or just experiencing it, you see, just imagining. You're just putting little puzzle pieces back into your form, you see. So what this does then, calling all it back, all of a sudden now you are a whole fractal. You are a whole fractal of a soul that is very connected to itself, you see. So you are connected into all parts and all aspects of your beingness, you see. So what this does is it creates an assuredness, a confidence, a unshakable foundation for which you can then move through life where there is no questioning, you see. there is not the deep questioning in the ways that the mind can do, you see. So you may have a little bit of fear still come up here and there, or it may feel like a big step that is being asked, you see, but there is still the undercurrent, the undertone. There is no question of the information. There is no question in the information of the messages, you see. So it is really starting with that. Starting with whole fractals, that is the first step. We all have to call back the parts, you see, making sure we're starting from wholeness. And then when in that frequency of wholeness, you see, becomes very easy, you see. We have the 4 steps, you see, Ava laid it out, you see, making sure you're in the clear, you see, this is part of it, you see, clearing. And you can just do a little bit of brush. We like to do the aura brushing. Have we done this before I do not believe we've done the aura brushing on the podcast. Would you like to do? This is a very simple one. This is very easy. Everyone can do. You see, this is different than taking a shower. This is what Ava's husband asked DiYeena. You see, we were just, I don't know, do not ask me why DiYeena was in the bathroom while her husband was in the shower. You see, I do not know. I do not remember what the circumstances were. Perhaps the children were wanting to play. We do not remember. But this happens at times. You see, we have a very wild life here. You see, we have Pleiadian coming in on the living room couch, playing with the children. You see, talking with her husband, Yeshua, while he's taking shower. You see, so he was in the shower and he was asking DiYeena some questions. He said, well, DiYeena was telling him to do the aura brushing. And he said, well, I'm in the shower. You see, it's not the same thing. DiYeena says, no, this is very different, you see. So it is doing a different thing because this is your fingertips, you see, the tips of your fingers and the energetics of the physicality of your form, you see. It's activating all of the subtle channels in the form, you see. So it's turning it on and also clearing in the energetics, the aura, the field directly around your form, you see. So this is a very important one. The showers are good, you see. It also clears energy too, you see. But this in a subtle, different way, you see. So what you do, you see, you can rub the hands if it makes you feel better, but not necessarily important. But you can if you like, you see. Gets you kind of fired up a little bit. If you're not already fired up listening to a crazy Pleiadian talk to you, you can get a little bit more fired up by rubbing the hands, you see. So you do it like that, you see. And then what you do is you simply rub. You simply rub your face, you see. Rub your neck, you see. Rub behind your neck, you see. You can rub the tops of your head. You see, your ears, you see, and what you are wanting to do is all your arms, your legs, you do your chest, your back, as much as you can reach. You see your legs down to your toes. And what you are doing then is you are just simply sweeping, a sweeping motion, like you're almost like flicking off the dirt. You see, if you were to have some dirt, you would just be flicking it off, you see, clearing it up, you see. So we do this. It's a little aura brushing, you see. And this is very, very good to do the cleansing every day. You see, this is a good way to just kind of reinforce the strength of your aura, the clarity of your being, you see. So this is a very simple way because not everyone has time to do, to call their shaman and do an entity checkup, you see, every so often, you see. Not everyone in that position or think it's a very good idea for themselves. But you can do, this is very approachable, you see. Maybe a little bit more approachable than talking to a Pleiadian trance channeler. You see, like this, you see, but it is more approachable. You just brush your skin, you see. So this is a very good one, you see. And then you are getting into number 2 with the listening, you see, getting on the good listening ears, you see, getting on the good listening ears, you see. Because this is really about really connecting in the sweetness of what you come to be in relation with, you see, because you all have your guides. We believe we've had conversations with this before. You all have your guides. You all have your higher self. You see, you being in the sweetness of relationship with that, you see. And that creates a heart opening, you see, and that allows you to be listening through the heart, you see, the ears of the heart. You see, this is the thing, the Magdalene, another being that channels through Ava, you see. The Magdalene talks about this all the time. You see, the first level of initiation is how she describes it. But to be pretending that you have the ears and the lips on the heart, you see, so that you are speaking and hearing through the heart, wherever you are, whomever you are in communion with or in conversation with, you are listening through the heart, as if your ears were right there, you see. and you are speaking through the heart, as if your mouth was right there, you see. So getting on the good listening ears through the frequency in the heart, you see, because this is the infinite multidimensionality, you see. So you are able to be attuned to the infinite possibility. So as you're doing that, you see, then the messages do start to come, you see, the hunches do start to come, the little subtle nudges do start to happen, you see. And you just have to really trust that you are in the space where it is not lying, you see. Their intuition will never lie to you, you see. It's always correct, you see, because it is you. It is you attuned to yourself, you attuned to the larger container, you see. And so it is very much you. You see, and so then the trusting, you see, trusting the information and then acting upon, you see, when it is appropriate, you see, not always appropriate, but you get in the appropriateness of it all, you see. And it really becomes quite simple when you are acting from the place of wholeness. So this is the key piece, you see, is that everyone is walking around, most of us, with fractals of our soul really missing, you see. And then it creates this really deep place where it is hard to trust ourselves, because we are literally missing parts of ourselves. And so we are wondering, why is it feeling so difficult to trust myself, or not having a feeling of safety, like I can really land? You see, if you have thoughts like this, then this exercise we took you through to really just call back all the puzzle pieces of your soul into your form, into your light body. Good to do, you see. Is this making sense to you, my dear?
Yes, there's definitely a few pieces that I would love to just speak on with that. You know, I think the first and foremost with talking about, or what you're sharing about the wholeness and calling back those fragmented parts, and how you're speaking of, you know, using your imagination. I want to just share with everyone that to not undermine the power of your imagination, right? A lot of people, you know, have expressed to me, well, is that really happening, or am I just imagining? Like, is that even real? And so as you're utilizing your imagination, right? Imagination is images of the mind expressed. Your imagination really is you know, this intuitive playground, really, where we get to you know, express, or even tapping into kind of that well of information that we talked about earlier, this treasure chest of information through the divine mind. Really trusting that as you're calling back those fragmented parts of self, that you really are. You're actually that powerful, just by creating an intention, calling back those parts of self, coming into a place of tuning into wholeness. Like, that is actually happening on an energetic level. And so it's trusting and believing that, yes, you are that powerful, and that it can be that simple, and that you don't have to overcomplicate it. And it can actually, you know, be this practice of simplicity. I think so many people feel like they need to overcomplicate things, or feel like it actually needs to be harder than what it is. So when it's a really simple practice, they're like, well, did that even really do anything? You know, what I've understood to be true, that the more that I've simplified my spiritual practices moving forward, the easier it is, first of all, to tap into them. And what I've understood is, oh, wow, this is actually really powerful. And it's doing a lot, actually, way more than what I thought. You know, for an example, just that exercise that you took us through, DiYeena, right? With the fingertips and just brushing over the auric field, this simple little practice. Now, you know, one of my clairs is clairsentience, which means I feel frequency and vibration in my being, in my body, in my subtle bodies. But just by doing that, I could feel my whole auric field light up. My fingers are tingling, my whole body started tingling. I could feel the impact, right? So many, or, you know, maybe some people might just go, well, this is a silly thing. Like, is this actually doing anything? As I'm just rubbing my body, and I could feel the tangible difference. And so I want to call you all into the subtleties, right? And that's what we were talking about with intuition as well. The subtle underlying energetic frequency that's there for you, and tuning into the evidence of these subtleties that are there, because it doesn't have to be super complicated. It really does get to be this simple.
We love this, you see. The simplicity way is very good, you see, because we do not need to overcomplicate, you see. It's very, very true, you see. Very good. Where else do we want to go in consciousness? Anywhere else? Or would we be feeling complete with that? Or is there more to say?
Well, there is something that came up, DiYeena, as you were sharing that I would love. You've actually shared this with me before, but we've never really shared this publicly.
A juicy one. We are excited.
Especially not on the podcast. But something that came forward was you had shared, you kept talking about informing the form. And you had shared something with me, in the past of I don't want to call it the science because obviously that's not the part of it, but the energetics, I'll say it in that way, the energetics of what's happening when you're taking information on in like a sacred geometric formation. Do you know what I'm talking about? You've shared that with me, how we're informing our form with the sacred geometric form. It's just so fascinating.
Yes, let's see how many times we can say the word form in one sentence, you see, and then we'll probably have it right on track, you see. We are joking, you see, but we like this question, you see. It's a little bit connected to the intuition. You'll see the bridges we can make with this, you see. We'll weave it together. The way that we were describing it, though, for you, what we were directly perceiving or talking about, we were talking about how everything contains a sacred geometrical pattern, right? Your form, your body is literally, if you were to pull apart the layers, if you were able to layer it, just literally pull apart all the little layers of your form, you would see the pattern of sacred geometry, layered upon layered upon layered, until it created a matter that appears dense and solid, you see. But it is really not that way at all, you see, but it appears that way. But it is sacred geometrical patternings. Same is true for all animals, for all plants, for all rocks, all of the things, you see. All living things, you see, have this pattern, you see. The water has the pattern, you see. And so what does that mean in terms of the foods that you are taking in, the information you are taking in? You see, we are saying this in the sense of the information is literally changing the form of your form, because it is forming. So we'll take a flower, an edible flower, for example. You see it because those are already in a pattern that does look like sacred geometry very easily, right? It's very much so. So it's easy to think. You see, so you take in a bite of that, you take the flower, you ingest that flower, the pattern of that flower, the information contained. See, the information is coded to create that particular pattern, first of all, and that particular pattern is information. So when you're consuming, you're taking in the form, the information, the formation of that form, you see. So that form is then informing your formation. You see, so you have a formation outside of your form, and then you have a formation that is being consumed. So then all of a sudden the frequency, the information, and the actual structure of that form is now being integrated into your structure, your form, your information. And so it is literally changing the cellular structure and reforming your form to match the frequency of whatever you're consuming. So when you do that over and over again, so you can see this for anyone who has watched someone go on a raw food diet, for example. This is an easy example because it's very you can see it very easily, you see. What you see happen in the beginning, you see, and we say this because Ava and her husband Yeshua met at a raw vegan retreat center. You see, they were working in this particular way, so they are familiar with this frequency. You see, what happens when you take in this form? You're eating all live foods, lots of fresh food, lots of fresh vegetables, lots of fruit. You see, you're bringing in so you're taking in the forms, the light, the frequency of light, into the form, into your body. What happens is more and more of that information coming in, being consistently informed. When you take in something, you are being consistently informed with that particular form into your form. It changes your form to match that consistency of the input, you see. So that is important to recognize, because it happens with the not so much the tangible matter, but also the information. So the news that you take, the thoughts you consume, You see, the beings around you, if they're saying loving things to you, or they're saying things that are quote unquote beating you down or making you feel less than. You see, these are information. These are forms that are informing our form. You see, so they are changing our form, either for the for the positive, for the quote unquote negative. You see, they are changing the form to match the frequency that is being put in it. You see. And that is happening all the time, you see. And on a micro level, it may not seem very noticeable. You're just having a little bite of a flower, and oh, wasn't that an interesting thing? We don't usually eat the flowers, but we ate a flower. Wow. You see, but on the subtle level, what is happening is very, very different. Your form is really taking in all of those codes, all of that information. And so the more you do that, the more you will see with the physical eyes how that is impacting the form, because you are really taking it in a new way. You see, you are allowing that to restructure, because you are doing it in a frequency, meaning in a consistency that is allowing it to reform in that way. Is this making sense to you, my dear?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And, I believe that it weaves so beautifully into even the talk of intuition and leadership, in the sense of really coming into, I guess we could call it deeper discernment and devotion of the information that you're taking in, whether that be food, water, what you're intaking off of social media, what you're maybe reading, like any information that's coming in. What DiYeena is speaking into, it's shifting the form. And so when I think of really building that intuitive muscle, building that intuitive bridge, the more that you even show up in, say, a meditative practice, or some sort of breath work or chanting, whatever it may be, whatever you do daily to connect with the divine, every time you make that connection with the divine, you're informing your form with a higher expanded bandwidth, which is also going to assist in really building a solid foundation to be receiving the intuitive guidance from the higher mind, because now you've actually created a sacred geometric formation within you that can receive those higher messages, that you're more tapped in and tuned in on an energetic level. There's a deeper attunement through the sacred geometric patterning. And I even think of some of the work from, some of the more, I guess, science minds down here in the earth plane that are doing work like Joe Dispenza, where he talks about, if you are somebody that, say, you can see yourself as being this leader that's here ready to step into your gifts, that's ready to really embody the highest possible outcome for your life, and really tapping into your highest potential. In order to really do that, right? Like someone like Dr. Joe Dispenza will talk about actually like shifting identity. And I see that in an energetic way of the more that you compound a new form, it's actually allowing you to take on that form, that identity of, I am someone who is intuitively gifted and a tapped in leader that is really here to be a way shower at this time for the evolution of human consciousness. And so I see it bridging this gap, maybe. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, my dear. And this also taps into a big part of Ava and the Yeshua's mission, you see, around really the parts around the food, you see, because there is a whole substruct of consciousness around intuitive eating, you see. And this really very much taps into what you're talking about, you see, around the geometrical patterning. And what we were saying about even the raw food diet, you see, what began to happen for the Ava, what happens for most, you see, that take this route, we're not suggesting for everyone, you see, just so you know, but we are just using it for example, you see, is that what happens then is you begin to become more intuitive. You are naturally expanded in your consciousness, you see, because of the frequency of the geometrical patternings that you are entertaining in your reality. you're expanding your bandwidth to receive the more subtlety in the field, you see. And so that is really part of it, you see. And there's a whole part where the more you are eating in alignment with the original blueprint, the sacred design, which is your original multidimensionality, prior to any interference, you see, what begins to happen then is that you are actually experiencing the original patterning through intaking more of the original patterning. So if you're eating fresh food that has not been cooked down, where it is distorting the geometrical pattern, you see it, because it does change the geometrical pattern when you cook the food, you see. So when you eat it in the raw state, it is maintaining the integrity of the sacred geometrical pattern and maintaining the integrity of the light. So the more you're taking in those fresh foods, you see, then all of a sudden your being is radiating more light. You can see it popping up through the eyeballs, you see. You can see the light just glowing off of these humans, you see. It's very, very, very beautiful, you see. And what begins to happen then is there is a shift in the mind frequency, you see. Because it is not so much the entertainment that is limited in the frequency of the mind. All of a sudden, there's an expanded awareness because there is more and more consciousness available in these more subtle realms and these other dimensional realms, because there is simply more attunement, because you are consuming the foods that contain that attunement. If this makes sense to you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just even thinking of when I eat certain foods, my energy level, right? Sometimes I eat certain foods and I want to take a nap. I need to go sleep afterwards. And other times, I'm super energized and feel very clear. Like you can feel it, like you can actually feel it on a physical, tangible level, the information, right? How it's forming your form, depending on, whether you're feeling tired and foggy or you're feeling clear and energized and grounded. And so, it's an invitation into those subtleties of what's really serving you when it comes through any sort of information that's coming in, and what is not serving you. And that may be a really, foundational place for you to start really working with your intuition and building that intuitive muscle of tuning in daily of, is this serving me or is this not serving me? And stepping into your own leadership and really starting to lead your own life in a way of doing what's highest and best for you. And then that gets to pour into any sort of creative channels or whatever it is that you're wanting to actually birth and bring to life as well.
Precisely, my dear. And this is really the first step of what we were talking about with the clearing your aura. You can do the aura brushing. The another easiest way, you see, easiest in the sense of results, you see, is the food intake. You see, the information intake, you see, because this is going to allow for the clarity of the mind, you see, and it's going to allow the information, the intuitive information, to be so obvious, you see, and it really does get obvious, you see. So it starts a little bit like a little bit of a subtle nudge, a little whisper here and there, and you will be questioning it because the mind is so activated, you see. But over time, you see, especially if you're choosing to do it through the food, you see, because you're again getting in circuitry with the nature of the original patterning of blueprint of creation. You're aligning with those frequencies. You're aligning with the frequencies of all creation and your multidimensionality. Well, then all of a sudden you are able to connect in with all the other possibilities in the field, you see. And so you are really tapped in. This is what it means to be tapped in, you see. So your higher mind is working in resonance, in circuitry with all of creation, because you are consuming it. You are consuming it in its wholeness, and you are reflecting and mirroring that wholeness, you see. And so this is what it means to really be in good leadership as well, is to be inspirational, to be holding the light, to be holding the frequency of the light, you see. So this is an easy way, a really recommended way, is to not to say to change 100% of your diet necessarily, but to really to consume more of the fresh foods, you see, and to not be in dishonor of what your body is requiring or asking for, but to just take in more of the light, you see, in general. You see, and this is really for everyone to take in more delight, because that is really going to help with that circuitry of your intuition coming back on the line. You see, these are simple things you can do. Everyone's like, well, how do I know to trust my intuition? It is really a process of really kind of coming into this state of wholeness within yourself, you see, calling back the soul pieces, you see, brushing the aura, you see, and taking in the foods and the information that are really aligned with your original blueprint of wholeness, you see. So you are reflecting that wholeness in all aspects of your reality. Is this making sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm curious if there's anything else that you want to share on intuition. I do have one more question that I would like to ask as well, but I'm just wanting to tune in if there's anything that's coming up for you right now.
This felt like a good one. We would like to hear your question, my dear. Or one more statement, whatever you had to say.
Yeah, I think a question that's just coming through right now would be, is there anything that you can share or that you would like to share to really inspire others of why it's so important at this specific time in humanity for those that really feel on a soul level that they're here to be in leadership, to really have the courage to step into being an intuitive leader at this time?
Well, this is a very good question, you see, very important one, because this includes all of you with the listening ears right now in this moment, you see. And really, the answer is really connected into the direct part of your wholeness, you see, coming into that frequency of the wholeness is really all of it, you see. Because we can kick you in the booty and say, go do it, because that's what you come for, you see, but you have to know it within yourself, you see. So what makes you know it within yourself? You see, there has to be that unshakable foundation of the wholeness where you just know, you see. And so it is coming back to that puzzle piece analogy where we are bringing back the soul pieces, coming into the wholeness, eating the foods that bring you into wholeness, because all of these simple aspects, you see, or opportunities really do create the frequency of you knowing yourself, you see. And when you know what you come for, when you know your purpose, when you know who you are, and you remember why you come to this planet, you see, at this particular junction in history. It's a very, very fascinating time to come to the earth, you see. You see, so a lot of you come for the ride, a lot of you come to be the help, you see. Those of you here in the listening ears right now, most likely coming to be the help, coming to be in the service, coming to help the humans, you see. So all of you coming to help, you see, not getting too caught up in the third dimension of all of it, you see. Remembering who you are and why you come, you see, being in the positivity of it all. Because here is the thing, you see. When we all come together, giving our gift, you see, when everyone is doing this, you see, what begins to happen is a miracle. It is a pure miracle, you see. What begins to happen is the light of the world begins to glow in such a way that it radiates this ripple of love out into the cosmos, out into the universe, and touches all aspects of creation. Why is this so important, you see? Because it creates a sense of, it brings into balance a reminder for all of beings, you see, even those that are playing out a very opposite role of that, you see, on other planets, you see, very much in other frequencies, you see. It's still, they feel that ripple, you see. And so what that does then is it recalibrates all beings, a reminder of that frequency of the love and the light, you see. And we cannot have all the love and the light, or we wouldn't even know it was there, you see. So it is still the balance, you see. We're still creating the wholeness and the balance. But your fractal, your particular soul, is not just important in a certain way. It is essential. Without your soul fulfilling its mission here in the planet, you see, it creates a hole. You can think about it like this, just for the simplicity of the mind, you see. It creates a hole in consciousness of unfulfilled energetics, you see. And so what that does then is it's not able to radiate in its full beauty and its full expression. It's not able to be actualized and realized in its fullness, you see. So it is it is inevitable. We will say it this way as well, you see, to take a little bit of the pressure off, you see. It is inevitable why you come, you see. There's no way to miss it. There is no way to miss your mission. And there is no way to not complete it, you see. Because even those souls that hang around and say, oh, I did not complete the mission because I left my gold in the backyard and I got to make sure that nobody take whatever the reason. You see, they have all the things that they make them stay around a little bit longer. So they feel like they did not complete the mission. You complete your mission for what you have come for, you see, in every time. And your soul is always working on other dimensions as well, you see. So just knowing how important, I think this is the message for everyone to really hear, is really grasping the importance of the individual soul. That every soul has an importance that is so grand, so magnificent, and so spectacular that it is really a requirement that you all choose to say yes to yourself and to choose to say yes to what you come for. So it is important for you to really be in the aliveness of who you are and to move confidently with the assuredness of who you are in your wholeness. Because when you are in your wholeness, you are in your wholeness, and then you are so in your power that you are moving through this world. So there is no doubt why you come and what you come for, that you are able to then create from that place in any direction. And this is the free will part, is we get to still choose what to do, you see. Because unlike what you've heard in rumors, what you do is not the important part. Everyone's worried about, what is my mission? What do I come for? What is my purpose, you see? The doing is not the purpose. The being is the purpose, my dears. The being is the purpose. You simply being the human being that you are, having your feet on the earth, is the fulfillment of the mission you come for in and of itself. Because this is a game of frequency. You see, this is not a game of running around with chickens with their heads cut off, all doing like busy little work bees, you see. The frequency is what is allowing the play of consciousness to exist and to move and to evolve, you see. So it is simply your choice to come down with a particular note in consciousness, a particular note in the symphony of sound, you see, that is fulfilling the mission, you see. So you are fulfilling your purpose, you see. And then you say, oh, great, you see, take the day off, you see, well, we'll just go and watch the Netflix then for the rest of the life, you see, because I'm all set to it. I did the thing, you see. Try it for a month and see if you will feel fulfilled, you see. And see if your frequency is still on point, you see. So what allows your frequency to stay in resonance and to stay in the sweet zone, so to speak, is being in the right circuitry with the giving and the receiving from the heart, you see. So you have to be fed by others in the same way in reciprocity that you are giving, you see. That is the frequency also of the abundance, you see, the finance, you see, works in that particular way as well. So there must be a pure frequency of exchange from the heart, you see. And that resonance, that frequency, that exchange is what allows us to remember our wholeness, because we are now connected into the other fractals in consciousness that are also playing their notes in the symphony. And when we have that reflection, we are remembering how important our particular note is in the symphony. And this is very true. Anybody who is in band in their younger years perhaps will understand this, and the choirs as well, you see. If you do not play your note in the song, it does not sound right, you see. It is missing something, you see. But you do not know that if you are not surrounded by all the other sounds, you see. So it is important that we be in right relation in that particular way. And that is what gives us the oomph or the courage to really step up and really give our gifts, you see. Because we recognize that, wow, this sounds so much better when I play my note, when I really come in the wholeness and play my frequency. The orchestra, the sound, the symphony, the song sounds so much better together when we are all showing up in our fullness, in our radiance, giving our gifts, and really having the opportunity to be in awe of every other gift around us, every other note in the symphony around us. You see, and that is the reciprocity, that we all get to be in awe and wow of each other and the gifts that we are able to give and receive from each other.
Beautiful. I love that aspect so much of the purpose of why we come here is really in the frequency of the being. But that doesn't mean that we just get to check out and you put on Netflix and just kind of, numb ourselves from the world. In fact, in order to be in wholeness, we also have to be in the doing, right? In the giving and the receiving. And the doing, what I'm hearing is that the purpose isn't so much in what we are doing, that this is the place where we get to play in consciousness through our free will of when we're in the alignment with the tonality of how our soul is wanting to be in resonance with the being, with the purpose of how we came here to be. We then get to create whatever it is that we desire to create through that lens because we've showed up in the purpose of the frequency of being. And then we get to be in the awe of what we're creating and what we're co-creating with others here in this experience as well.
Precisely, my dear. That is exactly right. And that is how we co-lead one another as well. You see, the leadership, then you get to see it through that lens of how we are in circuitry with one another. And this is the natural shape and form and movement of the cosmos. So we are coming back into the right relationship with the harmonics and the energetics of all of creation when we lead in this particular way, where we are really in awe of everyone's gift. And we are really in the right circuitry of it all, rather than this hierarchical pyramid. You see, we are more in the spiral of circuitry. Is that making sense to you?
Yes.
Very good.
So as long as we're nurturing and cultivating, right, that connection that we have with higher, and we can release the pressure of messing it up and not doing it right, and also the fear of failure in taking action. So if there's a creative project that you're wanting to do and you're ready to step into a certain leadership role in your life, letting go of the pressure of, is this right, or am I going to fail? And if I do, right, in quotations, I'll say fail. It's what I'm feeling is we get to take the pressure off of, as long as we're in devotion and cultivating that inner state of being, we then just get to play. We get to show up, we get to create, we get to be in co-creation, we get to be in deep trust that there's no way that we can mess it up, that we're all in this higher line divine path that is unfolding, and that we are being led somewhere really beautiful. And that can also take the pressure off to a lot of people who are maybe in a bit of a doom paradigm that's unfolding, that everything really is here to serve us right now, even if it doesn't feel like that in our own individual and collective life. And to take that pressure off, cultivate your inner world, start really building that intuitive muscle, and put yourself out there and just start building, start creating, start playing, start co-weaving with others. And I believe that's how we really continue to take the steps forward to create the new earth paradigm that we know that we're all here to create together.
Very beautifully said, my dear. We'll end it with that you really, all of you, to really create. You see, to sing the note of your soul. You see, if you are singing the note of your soul from your heart, you see, this is a true leader. This is a true leader. You see, because you are singing in your wholeness. You are singing the fullness of your expression, you see. So it does not matter what you are doing, as long as you are singing your soul's note through your heart, you are showing up as an inspirational light leader on this planet. And that is what we need more of, is souls that are willing and ready to sing their soul's song, you see. Come and sing your soul's song, and do not do it shyly. Do not whisper it. Sing it full and sing it loud and sing it clear and sing it with pride and joy, you see, for the whole world to hear, you see, because it is really important that all the fractals are really showing up in their fullness. Show up in your fullness, you see. Sing your soul's note. That is how you lead.
Wow, I love that so much. It doesn't matter what song you're showing up and singing, as long as you are singing the note of your soul. That is so powerful. And that leaves so much room for creative expression. And I really believe that it takes the pressure off of, there's no way that we can do it wrong if you're just showing up in your authentic expression. And so I hope more than anything that this conversation has inspired you to get out and create and be in your intuitive channel and be in your authentic expression and really show up in this new paradigm of leadership for yourself, your family, your community, and that we really get to rise here together. So thank you, DiYeena, for being here. Thank you to the whole collection of the Living Ma for being here with us. As always, just sending you all so many blessings and just so much gratitude to get to co-create in this container with you.
Well, right back at you, my dear. It is a pleasure for us as well. We send all of you blessings from the Pleiadian family. We love you all dearly. And we will see you very soon. Blessings.
Beautiful. Welcome back, Ava. That was such a powerful episode. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. Thank you for tuning in and listening. We did talk about the online membership a couple of times. So if you're curious about that, we'll put a link down in the show notes. And is there anything else that you want to speak on, Ava, before we complete here today?
Yes, thank you, everyone. I just want to say that I trust that this message was exactly what you needed to hear today.
Beautiful. And if this resonates with you, please like the video, subscribe so we can continue on this journey of ascension together. All right. See you all in next week's episode.